And here we're going back to the book. We stepped off the plane at RAF Bryce Norton. The next morning, we were hit by the English summer in full blaze. As we entered the airport lounge, the doors were slung open to a screaming crowd of relatives who charged towards us. My mother climbed over chairs to hug me, with all the rest of my family in close pursuit. My wife came up to me. I was tense and made unsure by all the noise and shouting. It made me scared in a peculiar way. Karen looked hard and almost angry. "Hello, Vince," was all I got from her. So he's home. Obviously, his wife was a little bit tense about some things. Back to the book. Actually, before we go back to the book, they do a little quick greeting with their family, but then they get back on a bus with the rest of the people, the battalion members, and they start driving back to their compound. Back to the book. All was very quiet on the journey. The English countryside made me feel like an alien. Johnny tapped my shoulder from behind. "Vince, the trees, man. Look at them." I looked at the trees. They were part of what was making me feel like an alien. They were all in full bloom, bright green leaves in the wind. There was traffic on the roads, shops, people walking about doing their own thing. It all seemed unreal. After only 3 months away, it was a shock to see civilization again. The odd thing was, I felt anger. Anger at everyone for doing their own thing. It was as if something in my head was urging me to shout at them as they walked along the streets. "Hey, you, licking your fucking ice creams. There's a fucking lot of injured guys over there. Friends have been killed, but all you're interested in is yourselves." Just frustration, I know. The general public was concerned, but it just didn't seem like it then. I wasn't expecting a medal or even a pat on the back. I really didn't know what to expect. Even so, I found it hard to be calm. There was no way I could relax. If I had been asked to go do a tour in Ireland, I would have gone. More than anything, I felt the pinch of no longer having my friends around me. We had been together so tightly over the last few months that it was as if now I had had an arm severed. The buddy-buddy system that we had needed to literally survive wasn't there anymore. And the sheltered life now seemed to me far too boring to endure. I made a point of not talking about my experiences to any member of my family, including my wife, but I do remember sitting up in bed one evening, turning to my wife, and giving her a very mild insight into what had really happened. I was sick to death of the press's views and of the publicity of a country still high on war. I told Karen what had happened to Denzel and Jones. The blank look she gave me, with a half smile, told me she wasn't interested and couldn't understand me at all. I never said anything again. I tried to look at it from her point of view instead. She was sick of the war, of the army, and of me going away. Whenever I bumped into one of the lads, I seemed more at home and relaxed talking our private language with him than I did with civvies and my own family. If I had had my own way, I would have gone out on the biggest bender ever. But I knew that was the easy way out. You know, these remind me of One Soldier's War. You know, you come back and there's no doubt when you come back from war, you're going to feel some of this. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to feel some of this when you see civilians walking around licking their ice cream cones. It's a rough transition.
Yeah.
Back to the book. There's no doubt that I was slowly unwinding over the long leave, but the boredom also gave me more time to think about my experiences. Worst of all were my nightmares about the war. At first they came nightly. Later they faded and returned intermittently. I always had the same dream of Denzel's smock and Jones's face passing before me. I would wake up in a bed so wet that a bucket of water might have been thrown over me. The nightmares lasted about 6 months or so. Today I can see and understand everything that has happened to me. I know now that I wasn't alone. The most comforting words I ever had to help me did not come from any of my family. My family were concerned, but could never really understand what I was going through. Those words came from my friends in the pub as we drank during leave. Johnny turned to me and said, "Vince, I've had a few turns in the night, you know." That made me sit up and see clearly that I wasn't alone. And when you're not alone, you're stronger. So that's something that I know I hear from a lot of vets. And maybe you're thinking that this is something you're experiencing that no one else is. Not true. Not only are other guys going through it, other guys have always gone through it. You're not alone. Back to the book. I fully believe that we as a nation performed the most excellent of tasks. I'm fully behind the decision to send the task force, and I wouldn't hesitate to fight again for our country and its beliefs. People who whinge about the decisions taken in war they weren't involved in, to me, are the most misguided of all. The most striking events to affect me throughout the war were obviously the deaths of my friends. 8 years ago, I regarded those friends as those in 2 and 3 paras only. Now, after learning about others' experiences and after watching and reading others' accounts, I see that the whole task force was my friend. I watched a Marine sergeant in a TV documentary, his eyes showing the emotion of his story, and the sight told me we were all the same. I still feel a bit angry that the wounded went unnoticed. A propaganda film on the task force's arrival home showed only the paras and the Marines and the Navy homecoming. Can you remember seeing the badly wounded coming through the gates? I think not. Nobody wants to see the effects of carnage. Never again will I think that war is just a game. Like they show it on TV, it is very different from how it is portrayed in books and films. We con ourselves into the killing game, don't we? I remember very clearly watching from a window of my quarters 5 or 6 kids playing a war game. Some were even dressed in combat gear and carrying small toy machine guns. I watched with interest in their tactics in attacking a cardboard box that was meant to be an enemy-held position. The 2 kids defending rolled over and pretended to die when overrun by the goodies. After being tigged by their friends, they got up to resume the game. From knee-high, we start to practice what is in human nature to defend and kill. The one big difference between their game and the real one is that you don't get up after really being shot. War is the legal killing of people and can be very scary. War is kill or be killed. We also must remember that a lot of the command structure at junior rank level can almost be too difficult to maintain in the heat of battle. Then, what becomes a winning factor is the determination of the private soldier. His lone get up and go and do attitude. We must take our hats off to the junior ranks of all services, for they are the backbone of the war machine in that they have to kill at close range. We are lucky to have what is perhaps one of the best fighting forces in the world, thanks to our system of training and to our discipline. Even today, I feel frustration about the war. I was so psyched up to carry on with the fight into Stanley that the Argentinian surrender made me disappointed as well as happy. I try very hard to keep out of fist fights now, as I wouldn't like to lose my self-control. Am I alone in feeling this? Or are there hundreds or thousands of other time bombs out there? Other experienced veterans may be sympathetic to all I've said. We can only wait for the next war now to practice the art of killing again. I hope I'm there to help. Finally, I must quote a First World War veteran who told me so many years before I joined the Army. You'll like the Army, Vince, but not war. It's horrible, boy. He was right. I didn't like it. Then again, I did.